Alrighty guys, welcome back to the garage. Not a super big video this week, just kind of an update. I've been so busy at work that I've only had little spurts to work on stuff, so let me keep you guys kind of updated where we're at on different things. The square body Duramax swap, I haven't really been doing anything on that. It's been so hot that I haven't been wanting to work outside at my real job all day and then come home and work on that thing outside. I barely want to work in the garage. So luckily my garage kind of north facing, it gets shaded in the afternoon, but it's still hot, so that's on hold because it's been hot. And number one, it's been hot. Number two, it's going to be a while before that's really on the road. So I've got some road trips coming up the end of this summer and hopefully a couple months here in the green truck. We're going to go up the Snake River in Idaho, do some fishing in Hell's Canyon, and I want air conditioning because it's hot and I'm close on here. So you saw, I think in the last video, you saw me put the AC compressor on this thing. Let me show you where I got to now and where we're at on this. So I've got, you saw before, we've got the compressor mounted. I got the upper radiator hose done. I fiddled with the charge air cooling system. I'll get to that in a second. But I've got the I've got the compressor. So I've got the condenser mounted here. This is just some universal deal. I don't think it's terribly fancy, but I'm hoping it's big enough. I can't imagine it being too small for a single cab on this truck. So we've got this mounted. Just went with some little brackety here. Don't look at these holes. I'm dyslexic or something. But we've just got a little piece of aluminum channel run across here, piece of angle up here holding it all nice. I'm gonna get the grill thrown back on here. I think I can do most of the work with the fittings and everything we need through the one insert that we can just remove and do it all here. I think these fittings are all gonna kind of just bulkhead through right here. Once again, I'll get to the charge air cooling system in a minute. We've got to move this heat exchanger that's over here, but these lines will just come off, bulkhead here. So I think we can do that with the grill on. Worst case, it takes about 10 minutes to pull that thing off. So that's that. What we got here is, I put this tank up here. Originally I had a little inline radiator cap filler here that I was coming off of with a little line, this thing here, to try and give more volume to the system, to try to keep the coolant in the system. The problem I was having, I would fill this up and I don't know if it was, I wasn't getting it primed good enough and we were pumping air, that it was getting real hot. But I think what would happen is that heat exchanger isn't big enough, and so it would heat up, push all my coolant out, and then we would be left with air. I burned that pump up. That's a different pump. But anyway, this tank, I put it up here. I was gonna run it off one single little line to try and give it some volume. It was a pain to bleed. It didn't really work right. So I went and got some weld-in bung fitting type things, and I got one on the bottom that the pump can just pull straight out of this reservoir. This one here, they're both half-inch pipe fittings with a 3/4 barb. So now it pulls right out of this reservoir into the pump, through the charge cooler here to the heat exchanger, and then back to here. Gives it a chance to get all the air out, gives it a good prime. The only problem I have now, the coolant stays in the system now, but on long poles I put some just mechanical water gauges in here, nothing fancy, but on long poles, 10-15 pounds of boost. This thing, after a couple minutes, the water coming out of this charge cooler is about 210 or 15 degrees, and we're only getting a 10 to 15 degree drop in temperature across this little heat exchanger, which for as small as this is, that's not a terrible drop in temperature. The problem is we need that coolant to be coming back as close to ambient as we can get. So I'm gonna get a different heat exchanger ordered. I've got tons of room down underneath the radiator behind the bumper that I can mount a pretty big heat exchanger down there, and then put a little air dam or something to shove the air up into that thing. So that should be better. But that's where we're at with the charge cooling system. At least the coolant stays in the system now, and so I can go make some big pulls, and at least at the end of the pull, once I level out and start cruising again, it cools off, you know, it gets down to about 130, 40 degrees fairly quickly. And like I said, if I get that big heat exchanger under there, I think that will have that all solved. And then we can tidy up all of our hoses for that charge cooling system. We can get it all tidied up, secured up, final. This has just been a tested process. So that's where we're at on this. All right, well, I had to answer that phone call. That was the boss. Anyway, yeah, so that's kind of a quick update on what we got going in the garage and the different things we got. I'm gonna start a big project at work. We've got to swap some axles on a couple semi trucks. I might show you guys, but we've always got old grain and the square bodies Duramax swap to fall back on. So stay subscribed, all that stuff. We're trying to keep this stuff going, but we're kind of getting busy with the truck and stuff. So hopefully you enjoy this little quick update. I'm trying to get some other stuff going down at my dad's. So stay tuned, we got a lot of stuff to do. See you in the next one.